Okay, so let's open this video with a challenge. What I'd like for you to do is to extract this button element right here in our taco card to a new React component. I'd like for you to create a new file. I'd like for you to call that file and component add to order button. And then of course, once you transfer the JSX to this new add to order button component, I of course would like you to import the new component in this taco card and utilize it in here in our JSX. Now, to be quite honest with you, is there really a need to do this right now from a code organization or a component perspective? The answer is not really. There's only one button in our app and it's being used right here in Taco Card. So we may not see the reusable benefits yet. And typically it's a good idea to wait until you can identify the reusable chunks of your interface before you move them into a new component. With that said, throughout most code bases, there's usually going to be a reusable button component just because it's something that is very common. There's usually going to be a lot of buttons with a lot of variations on a given web application. You're typically going to see something like a button component. In this case, we're going to have a specific add to order button component, and we're not going to have any kind of customization yet. It's just always going to have these styles and this text, but it should give us the kind of practice that we need right now. So go ahead and pause the video and I will join you shortly to show you how we can extract this to a new add to order button component. So let's walk through the solution. The first thing I did, of course, is create a new component file. So right here in my source directory, I created a new file called add to order button.jsx. I am naming these files with all capital letters for the first words, or every word for that matter, following the convention of how we name our components in React when it comes to the actual naming of the file as well. So there is my new file. I'm going to move it over to the right-hand side. And here, of course, we have to declare a React component, which for us is going to be a functional component. Once again, you can either use an arrow function or regular function syntax from JavaScript with the function keyword. I'm once again going to go with an arrow function. So right here, const add to order button. It's going to be an arrow function that returns JSX. And I am going to copy and paste this button right here from our taco card component, right here in line, save, and let Prettier do its magic. Then I have to be very careful and make sure that I actually export default this component. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to import it in any other file. So now it is the default export, which means in our taco card, we can import it right here. Import add to order button. That name, of course, is up to us because it is a default export. So we can technically call it whatever we want, but I typically will give it the exact same name where it is being imported as where it is originally designed or defined. So right here, this is the add to order button component, and that is going to come from the add to order button component file in the same directory. So now that we have it imported right here, we can get rid of our former button regular HTML element and simply replace it with an rendered add to order button React component like so. It can be a self-closing component. So there we go. And this should work. So I'm going to close this, shrink my editor a little bit, and everything still looks the exact same in our browser. Everything is still working. And now we've gone one more level deep. So our app component is rendering a taco card, and our taco card is rendering some JSX and then rendering its own nested component called add to order button. So this is moving closer to what a real React codebase is in the real world, which is many levels or layers of components being nested all the way down. And you can feel free to create lots of small components. You don't have to connect yourself to all kinds of arbitrary obligations like this component must be at least 10 lines long or anything like that. It's really up to you to define what you want as your components, what you feel comfortable with, what are the pieces that you want to work with. In this case, as I mentioned, I may not necessarily agree that a button is worth having in its own component right now, but I wouldn't necessarily be offended by it either. I might say, okay, so you see the add to order button being used perhaps in many different places throughout the app, obviously in the taco card, but maybe there's going to be other places on our taco website where we're going to utilize it as well. Maybe eventually we'll have like burritos or something. Well, then the add to order button makes sense as a separate reusable component that we can use it in many other components as well. So there's no right answer. It's just kind of a judgment call, and you get better with it the more you practice. That's all there is to cover in this lesson. So I will see you in the next one.